Hello and welcome to this background video for the Scottish TTA conference early in November 2024. What we're going to look at is two sessions. This is really covering the ideas of fundamentals for sketching, design sketching. What you're seeing here is the creation of shape, the use of line. And although it looks kind of odd with the arm moving from side to side, that's been done for a reason. The page I'm working on here is fixed. Normally we would turn the page and make it easier to draw the same type of line repeatedly and just simply turn the page. So once you get the hang of drawing a straight line, that's a straight line drawn from the shoulder using the whole arm with the front side of the hand skimming across the page. There's no sound in this, so you'll miss out that noise. Then once we've got the idea of the lines overlapping, we can create shapes by firming in. That's a second grip. It's a firmer grip down towards the tip of the pencil or pen. You can see here the same action in pencil this time, the whole arm moving, turning the page normally, and we'll get the same horizontal or vertical line. It's the same line. And in fact, for sloping lines, again, it's the same line. So lots of practice on this line technique and it becomes second nature. Here we speeded things up quite a bit to slow this, or to speed this whole thing up a bit rather than taking 45-50 minutes. We've got it down to about half that at 25. The skills shown in this would normally be covered over several weeks with first year classes. This is really just giving a condensed version of using lines to create shapes. And then from the fundamentals of, in this case, rectangles and squares, by removing materials, or giving the appearance of removing materials, by cutting bits off, by subtraction, if you like, we're creating new shapes. So at the moment, outlines are going in with a grip holding the pencil down near the point. To add a shade or tone to a surface, or to a surface area, a shape, we use the side of the tip of the pencil, and that's with it held much further back in the palm of the hand with the forefinger resting at midway down, so you can vary the pressure. You can actually see the difference in pressure by the change in the colour on your nail as you press on it. So in this case, turning it to the longer side or the longer stroke, and not to worry too much if you go over the edge. You can see it's gone over the edge a couple of places there. At the moment, we're not doing the, oh, you've gone over the edge of the shape, you've made a mistake. At the moment, it's about learning new skills and having a go. These straight lines I'm quickly drawing across some existing shapes or some light constructed shapes allow me to create something new. In this case, that square shape has created a triangle and a odd four-sided shape. This long rectangle has now got a long ramp type of shape, and again, firming in the outline just defines the edges. Again, bits and pieces of this will be speeded up, so at the moment, we're really looking at the fundamental skills. This should have been speeded a bit further, but by overlapping some shapes or adding shapes side to side, we can create new ones. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. I think you should be able to work out what's been sketched out in this case here. But again, drawing from the shoulder, light construction line, then firming in, pencil held down near the point, much firmer outline to define the edges. So an outline, and then using the side of the tip of the pencil to create areas of colour or tone. We've only done tone so far, but we can just change the pencil type and we can get the same technique to create colour. So you can see there that by overlapping two rectangles of different proportions, different sizes, different scales, we've got two T's, and then we've drawn some sloping lines within the square there to create an A shape with a little triangle in the middle as a space. The idea of a space is kind of important because we've created shape, but we've also punched a hole in the middle of that shape to create the triangle, and we'll look at that a little bit later on. Well, there's the grip for rendering. It's the side of the tip of the pencil. It's kind of speedily demonstrated there, but you can see how the colour very quickly gets washed on to the page. And again, don't worry about going to the edges or overshooting the edges. One little technique with the colour that works particularly well is to then use a more of an outlining grip and go around the edge of the area that you've added this colour to. Can work with a tone as well, but it's particularly good with colour pencils. We're just using primary colour, so you can introduce the idea of primary colours fairly early on, red, yellow and blue. And again, these are just pencils you'd get in the sort of cheap sets that we have to buy for departments. So by going inside the outline, we've just defined that blue rectangle a little bit more impact, just using the tip of that same blue pencil. Sorry about the head getting in the way in some of these shots. This was all filmed in a kitchen work surface. Red, same, there's the side of the tip of the pencil. Try and go for the longer stroke if you like, so rather than working across the way, it's easier to start off with. Working along the longer stroke, again, not worrying about if you're going over the edge, firming in on the inside of the line, and we've got this new shape. In fact, that looks like this a bit being cut out of the square. It's almost like there's a triangle and notch being taken out. Okay, side of the tip of the pencil, we can also vary how much we press on it so we can get some graduated colours, graduated tones, but a little bit more about that later on. So there's the basic tools. You can also introduce the idea of primary colours added together making secondary colours, so yellow and blue making that green, swap the blue over to the red and blue making a purple. Again, this is high speed. I wouldn't expect anybody to teach this quickly, but just for the purposes of this TTA conference and the workshops, this is a condensed version of quite a lot of work, but thrown together so you can get an overview. Now, these shapes we're firming in at the moment in pen, because it does work the same in pen, but it's obviously easier to work with pencil as the kids would be doing. You can see we've cut corners off. The bit looks a little bit like a guillotine. It's kind of important that something's definitely missing in this demonstration is that we haven't added written notes. Written notes are essential in any design exercise because you're recording your thoughts, feelings and ideas as they happen. You can add more later on, but you often lose that initial thought. If you can record it next to a sketch, you can go back, revisit it, use it, miss it if you want, but you can use it. What we're looking at these pencil strokes at the moment, the ways people would tend to draw lines, whether it was little hairy lines joined end to end or curves. But this idea of drawing straight lines takes a fair bit of practice. In this case, turning the page again, you can see that movement is speeded up. But if we can get the idea of horizontal lines, once you have the idea of a straight line, it's how you orientate the page as to which way it's going to travel. So turn the page, it's horizontal, turn it, vertical, turn it again, you can end up with a sloping line. So keeping the range of skills simple, especially early on, students will end up developing their own feeling for these things. We're trying to avoid that curve idea that happens naturally. So these lines at the moment, dead straight as best they can be over the existing line. But if we were to take advantage of the fact that your wrist does work a little bit like a compass and can cause problems if you're trying to draw straight lines, sometimes we can use this to get the idea of a curved cut. Even if those lines aren't particularly straight, we'll just tidy them up. So let's just try a curved cut rather than a straight cut like before. Now, rather than going for that sharp bit at the top, which could be difficult and a little bit pointy and sharp looking, a little bit difficult to cut out of a material, I'm going to tend to go for the bulgy bit, the outside bend, not the inside bend. So that one over there, the question mark, I would avoid at the moment. The one on the right, definitely that curve leads itself to other possibilities. So again, we're turning the page or turning the hand, this time the person, and we're going to try some curves. Straight away when people start working with curves, things appear a little bit softer, a little bit more friendly, a little bit more inviting. And you start to think of things like there's a shield shape coming here, or it might be a leaf or a wing. Those sort of thoughts recorded at the time can help inspire ideas later on. So you can see that the basic idea of drawing shapes and removing things, curves. The fact that we got going with that big curve earlier on, we're going to try and do some circles. And what tends to happen is people have a go and give up. We end up with that little sort of oval shapes appearing. But with practice and a little bit of pushing, without getting your head in the way of the camera, a little bit of practice. This can take several pages of just drawing what several students have referred to as, my page was like covered in frog spawn. As many circles as they can. Yeah, the heel of the hand gets a little bit grubby because your hand's skiffing across the page as you're doing this. Nice and light. And then eventually, with a bit of practice, the idea of firming in a circle. Now that could, to my mind, look like a hole. The material itself, in this case just using one of those secondary colours, touch of green, go around the inside of the line again, just to define that edge. But as well as the shape, we've also got the edge of the hole. So in this case, going around the outside of the hole, if that makes sense, just to define that a little bit better. So circles, holes, things that can be put into holes, eyes. The holes certainly draw your attention to something by putting a circle or a hole in something. Your eye tends to be drawn towards that visually. It can also have a functional use. We can also put more than one hole. We could, on this line, in case it's a curved line, arrange a series of holes along a line. Whether it's a straight line or a wavy line or a curved line, as in this case. Things like buttons on a shirt are a classic example of this. Well, the buttons are positive rather than holes, right enough. Again, side of the tip of the pencil. This is a very, very speeded up idea. Now, we could put pencils in those holes. We could put paintbrushes. We could put batteries. There's all sorts of things that would fit neatly in the hole. But at the moment, for the purposes of this exercise, we're just looking at creating new shapes. The function we can consider separately or alongside this as an idea develops. So we've got these patterns, we've got holes. If I put a hole into a hole, or I put a slot into a hole in a piece of material, that looks like it could grip something. Something could be slotted into this, well, funnily enough, a slot. So you can see there, we've got the defining the outline. Again, it's speeded up. We touch a colour in there to define it. We're not spending ages in the colour, it's literally just floating colour in, then going round the inside edge. There will be bits that have gone over the line, not to worry about it. You're allowed to make mistakes. It's learning by making mistakes is just as important as learning by success. So there's holes with slots. And we can put holes in a variety of places, but if we're going to be producing something in the workshop and the kids are introduced to drills, Forstner drills, hole saws, twist drills, whatever it might be, there are some practical limitations as to what we can do with holes. And an example I used to use was earrings. Where do you get your ears pierced? Near the edge or further into the lobe? I'll let you choose what you use as examples. So what could go into that slot? That's all it's saying there. It's a thought at the time. So circles, in this case, it gives us possibilities. We're not too sure what we could do with them, but, well, there you go. We've overlapped two circles, a rectangle, and we've definitely defined ourselves. A bit of a question there. Okay, as I say, that's probably about 3 lessons worth just thrown down on the page there at the moment. As I say, the curve thing is quite nice in that it's a friendly shape, it's an organic shape, it's a natural shape. In this case, this curve, maybe with a pattern of holes going through there, 2 on either side, maybe a third one smaller. You can change the size of the hole, a nice idea. Maybe a curve going the other way, maybe that looks a bit like a bridge of some sort, so maybe a slot in the top there and going up and over. That's an inside curve. They're a little bit more awkward to make, a little bit more work involved in finishing off, but it's definitely something that, if it's worth doing, it could be included. Maybe not for some of the kids with more complex motor control issues, especially when using things like a coping saw or a Hegnar saw. Curves go in opposite directions. This is almost like we've now got a new set of rules. We could say that a leaf shape with an outside curve going one way and an outside curve going that inside curve. No, let's just, outside curves in both ways. Changing the size or the radius of the curve, they look like eyes. That's like a fish looking shape. I wonder if I could put something on the back. That's an inside curve. There's an eye. I definitely see a fish starting to develop there. I've got a bridge, a leaf, and a fish. And I had no idea where I was going with this, but I've got 3 possibilities. Maybe those holes, I'm thinking we desk organizer for pens or brushes or makeup. Maybe a bigger hole for some colour or other in a tube or a glue or whatever that might be. And the outside curve, easier to cut and to shape and to use the disc sander. Holes can be drilled. That's probably Forstner drill for the bigger one, maybe a twist drill in the smaller one. Coping saw and Hegnar saw for the outside shapes. Maybe even rounding off the edge, maybe a little bit of work of, depending what material you're using, whether it's MDF or plywood or solid timber, you could work a curved, softer profile to this. Not just the shape, but the 3D-ness of it. And that tail thing there could be a thinner material underneath. This, I like that line, but How do I do that? What would it doesn't have to be another piece of material. It could be painted on. It could be with a bit of masking tape. But the tail, maybe a thin piece of material, maybe a thinner plywood or hardboard or some of that thin foam you can use for modelling. It could go around the whole back. So the thinner material is going underneath, would be glued underneath the main body. It might actually be at the back of the eye as well, so it could be the same colour. So we could paint that pattern on the lower half. If you're looking at painting, then maybe things like that leaf shape could have a series of different greens on it, or maybe the pattern of the leaf going off to the side. So about 15 minutes in or so, and we started a little theme on this. And again, this is quite a bit further on. This is definitely not a first lesson, but this is showing where this type of design sketching early on, first year S1, could start developing a theme, a way of designing using a theme. If we took the fish idea, I'm sure that there's enough research and access to resources that you can look at the wide variety of real fish, and who knows where Nemo comes in terms of fantasy fish, science fiction fish. You've also got cartoon fish, you've got fish characters, maybe some more fins, maybe a shark type shape, maybe a longer, sleeker. The size of the tail, the size of the body, the length of the body, the curviness, if there is such a thing. And just by adding a little bit more tone on this, I have to get round the page to do this one now, to give the idea of it being a rounded shoulder, a bit like the armrest in a settee rather than the edge of a concrete slab. So it's much more rounded. I'd maybe best demonstrate that with a physical model to the students rather than just a drawing. I've done all this on a sheet of, it was actually wrapping paper from IKEA. So it's a big drawing, but again, this can be demonstrated on a blackboard, it can be demonstrated on sheets of paper in the form of a folio, and certainly that's the way we've worked in the past. So some greens, high speed rendering here, it's very much speeded up. Give me a touch of green on that, maybe something around the edge, and maybe some sort of pattern. And again, something could be painted on, whether it's painted with a paintbrush or a stencil, or maybe even felt pens on top of green paint. And again, softening the edge a little bit. There's that leaf type of shape. Again, research, finding what do leaves look like. Depending on the time of the year, the colour can change. We're doing this in autumn, so there's all sorts of oranges and browns and yellows could appear in that, as well as the original colour of the leaf. The bridge has been sort of parked there a little bit because I seem to be going for this fish idea and just using two curves, outside curves mostly, but you just trying different, there's a little inside one there, trying different combinations of fish bodies. And you can see this is almost done, slightly speeded up, to give you an idea of just how random the possibilities could be at this stage. Almost ended up with a whole shoal of fish here. Triangles for tails, so big one, small one, big body, small tail, small body, big tail. Curvy tails, spiky tails, there's a wee body on that, wee tail in that one. More dynamic inside curves, big fan tail at the back. The tail gives you an idea where the head is going to be. So if the head's going to be at the other end, might be thinking about an eye or teeth or fins. I have no idea. Let's see how these are going to develop. So let's just put some circles in. So again, the size and position of the eye can make a big difference. Trying to go for circles wherever I can. There's a few unlikely looking circles there, but the idea of drilling a pole, or maybe I could use something else for the eye. There's a second eye appeared there. There's a big eye on that one. Maybe a little internal line, or maybe a little bit of surform work or rasp work to give an idea of a mouth in there. And if there's a material going at the back for the tail, maybe it could come underneath and also help create triangular fin type things. So it's a shark fin or a mohawk or something more whale-like. Again, size and position. None of these are fixed, you can change them. And teeth. I thought that was going to be the side of the fish, but that's now going to be the mouth. So we'll put the tail at that side there. These can be firmed in, colour added to them, notes, essential that notes go into them. So this is, again, just speeded up. And by firming in the body and then the tail separate, it's not one shape anymore. You should be able to define it as different materials, because you've got a hard line round where the tail is, or the fin is, and the teeth. Those teeth would be thin material underneath. Big eyes, pupils to go on them possibly, or there's some fish attacking each other down there. Little saw cuts or scissor cuts into that foam material, but the hole doesn't have to be negative. That circle could actually be positive, a sticky outie, a dowel, a peg. But how do we show that? Well, we had a little bit of shade on stuff earlier on, but see this orange thing, I'm going to put some contrast in colour opposite of purple's yellow. Look at the colour wheel, it's an easy find. And put a wee background here to make that look slightly more 3D, to pop that drawing out a little bit. Use the sheet of paper as a mask to get a straight edge along the edge of the material there. And I'm just going to put a little varied edge on this right hand side. I'm not going to finish it off. But you can see hopefully that one stands out a little bit more. Those two circles though, that's definitely a hole. I said that because I put in a hole next to it. And that one there, same shape, is also a hole. This one, if you didn't know any better, is also a hole. And if I check my spelling right, change that H for a P, I've got a pole. But how does it look pole-like? How does it stand out? Well, we could add a little bit of shading. If you use the side of the tip of the pencil, just a grey, or a coloured pencil would do as well. If this is a, right enough, holes don't have much colour in them. So let's just put that in as a purple. There's the inside line, there's that baldy head again. And a little bit of the shadow of that pole at an angle, maybe 45 degrees-ish. And you can stand a few poles up on paper and see what the shadows look like. The length of that shadow suggests the height of the pole. So if I've got one here, I've got a shading and shadow down the underside of it. It's getting a little bit darker. That's to give that curviness. If I was to have that same shadowy type effect there, that eye is now sticking out. I could use that as a coat hanger. I could hang things on that pole. My fish has become a 3D peg of some sort to hang things. It doesn't have to be a coat, it could be a bag, it could be all sorts of stuff. And then very quickly adding some shading on these to suggest how rounded these forms might be. Again, some examples in front of students of this type of surform work or rasp work or whatever you're going to use to shape the material. You can shine a light off a phone on it and you can definitely see that shaded darker edge. There's even a little bit of a shadow sometimes cast off the pole or onto the fins that stick out at the back, so there might be a little bit of a shadow going onto the thin material at the end. Okay folks, that's the basic of it. The idea is that using holes, the pun at the bottom here, it's holding and holding stuff. But more importantly with this, your list of stuff can be as long as you like, but you're also holding somebody's attention. You're holding the attention of the students and you're holding the attention of somebody who's going to use it or potentially would like to own a product such as that. So that's about 23-24 minutes. I think all these fish are now going to be looking at the holding joke at the bottom. We'll have a quick fly past what we've done. That's one of the things we might be covering at the TTA, but it depends on what you want to go over. We've got this and analytical sketching, the sort of thing you would use within graphic communication. Hope that's been useful, and if you get a chance, I might see you at the TTA. All the best. Here's some examples of students' work from a couple of years ago, but you should see a direct link between what we were sketching earlier on there and these models produced by first year pupils at the James Young High School back in the day.